This episode is brought to you by AccuTrade, the industry's most powerful acquisition tool. Welcome to the David Spisak Show. I'm so thankful that you're here, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you. If you don't know him already, and if so, you're in the minority, Mr. Don Hall. Don is the president and CEO of the Virginia Auto Dealer Association. And while Virginia is not close to having the most units sold, new cars sold in their state, when you compare them with units, states like, for example, Florida, Texas, or California, I can promise you there is no auto dealer association that has a greater impact month in and month out than the VADA. Don Hall, thank you for joining me. Welcome.
David, it's my pleasure, my privilege, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and your audience.
Thank you. It's really something I've wanted to do for a long time. And as you know, you and I, we just met each other a few months ago. How we didn't know each other and meet each other, over 45 years of being in this business is astounding. But I love your story. And I want to start there if we can. And if I could just introduce people that don't know you, aren't aware, like I'm always interested, how did you get here? So if you go way back, I believe that, like me, you served in the military, right?
I did, but let me go back even before that, and I'll be very, very brief. I grew up in Los Angeles, California. My father was literally a motorcycle gang member, a one percenter. He was one of the originators of an MC out of LA. My mother was literally his old lady. They had me when they were 16 years of age. And so my life was not normal. It was not one to be proud of. It involved me being in foster care and moving around a lot. 51 years ago, as a young 17-year-old kid at the time, I talked to United States Marine Corps recruiters. And I was in foster care. I was actually a runaway from that. And they had to find my mother, and she agreed to sign me up. So at age, I turned 18 actually in boot camp. I went in the United States Marine Corps, and that became the change in my life. Though I will readily admit, I spent 7 days locked up in boot camp. I thought they were going to throw me out of the Marine Corps because of my attitude, the chip on my shoulder. But ultimately, I had a great experience serving the United States Marine Corps for 4 years as a young man. While I was on the GI Bill after that experience, I was going to school in East Carolina and North Carolina, having been married at that point and having a child on the way in 1979. I found myself needing a job badly, and a car dealer said, "Hey, we've got this new role called F&I, and would you be willing to do it? We'll pay you well if you'll do it, and you'll do it whatever day you're not in school and every single Saturday, period." I said, absolutely. I'm happy to tell you that not only did I do it, I went off to an F&I school that was just starting up. I learned a lot about it, loved it, went home to my wife and said, look, I am dropping out of school, literally the beginning of my senior year of college. And I said, I'm going to be in the car business for the rest of my life. I love this industry. 46 years ago, I started in the car business. I spent about 8 years in the car business, approximately. My top role was a general manager, a sales manager, F&I manager, obviously. And then I had an opportunity to do something that was unique. In my early 30s, I knew that being a dealer probably wasn't going to be in the cards for me. But I loved this industry with all my heart. And I wanted to make a difference in this industry because it mattered to me. It gave that street kid an opportunity that was very, very unique. And so somebody said, hey, have you ever considered being a lobbyist for the Virginia Auto Dealers Association? I said, absolutely. I'd love to be a lobbyist. One of them got my Webster and said, what does a lobbyist mean? I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea, David, none. And the rest is history. I have been here for 37 years. I'm the president and CEO. I love the dealers. There are only two of us in the entire nation that run statewide dealer associations that actually worked in the retail car business. And that particular man also was a Marine and worked for me for almost 10 years, and then went on now to run the Kentucky Auto Dealers Association.
Wonderful.
So we are the two retail guys. It is in my blood, my passion. I work as many hours as any of you in the retail work, but I love this business, and I love making sure that we do what's right, that legislators and others know the benefits of our industry, But again, that we do right because I understand the game well. And that's my promise, my commitment, and that's why I do what I do.
I love it. It's a great story. And I remember when we first met, we had those kind of a little bit of a similar path, obviously, troubled childhood, rough beginning, rough childhoods, tough times, that we're both fortunate enough to have the wisdom to join the military and to be able to do a reset and have an opportunity to start out our lives young with some hope. And we both ended up in the same path in auto. And I sit here, this is my 46th year in auto. I believe yours is the same. And like you, I loved it when I got into it. I love it 1,000 times more now. There's never a day I don't wake up where I'm not completely thankful that I'm in this business. And there's never a day, Don, that I don't wake up as a complete white belt. Every day, I know there's so much that I don't know. And I want to touch on that just for a minute before touching on a couple of other subjects. And I want to touch on a couple things, Don, that frankly are not directly involved in the business, but indirectly everybody can learn from. And I know that you're going to make a contribution in a really tremendous way to those people that are listening here. But I want to start with this. So, as you've been in this business over the last 45 years and in the VADA for 37 years, where you've seen things that most dealers even probably will never see, right? In other words, especially in Virginia, where your neighbor happens to be the capital and you're literally in the midst, you're right next to NADA. What are some of the things that you've seen? I'd like to just get your take on where we are today as an industry, as we've continued to evolve, grow up, reinvent, and continue to be this tremendously resilient industry. What is it? Where are we now? What is it that makes this industry so resilient?
I think first and foremost, what makes this business so great is that it is fun and it is challenging at the same time. Technology has changed our world immensely. And that's an important thing. And I tell dealers so often, if you're not willing to embrace technology, it's time to sell out and get out. Yeah. Because that is who we are and what we are as an industry. We don't need manufacturers ever having the idea that they're going to be more successful selling direct than we as car dealers can sell. At the same time, I have said this publicly in numerous publications. Automotive News quotes me a lot in articles and so forth. And what I've said is we have a cancer in our business that's existed way back when you and I were young men as well. We live and die on the 30-day principle. Everything's based on 30 days. Listen, it's a great system. I can make a lot of money doing that as a young man. The problem, though, is that at times we're not thinking long-term with our investments. Investments in people, investments in technology, investments in our future. And at the end of the day, if we can get away from that system, then it will allow us to invest longer term and make longer term commitments to the people that work for us. We know now more than ever before in our entire your and my careers, it is all about the customer buying experience, period. I know, and you know, that if we have great staff who are highly motivated and feel well compensated for their efforts and can make a good living coming out of school, and this is a great profession to be in, then they will make sure that customers have a great buying experience. I certainly have clients in Virginia, you have clients nationwide that give customer buying experiences. We still have entirely too many dealerships that are still all about the tug-of-war of the gross, and we got to hold this, hold that, do this, do that. We've even got dealers nationwide that are advertising, come buy the car today. We've got a special markup on it because of the tariffs are in, when in reality, those cars are not subject to the tariffs. It's a chance to make a buck or two. Stop doing it. Go ahead,
Don. Oh, my God. There's so much that is still happening that has so many negative implications on our business. You just hit on one of them. How about people that are putting false prices on used cars, saying, here's the price, And then when the person comes in, the price gets switched, right? There's dealers that are adding fees once you come in, that are adding markups that were not disclosed. There's so many things that still happen today, and we need to get to a point of transparency. Also, in the same thing on the vendor side, there are vendors that, and I found one of them, I won't name the name here, but there are vendors that are taking dealers' data and then turning around and aggregating or selling that data. And not enough dealers realize the importance of reading those terms and conditions, what we call a EULA in the tech business, end user and license agreement, where you unwittingly, unknowingly, maybe not unintentionally, are giving those people the rights to do what they want with your data. And it's absolutely ridiculous. So that those are the tough things. Those are the things where we still have miles to go. I think another one is just people. You mentioned people. How do you deliver a spectacular experience, Don, if you don't have the best people, if you don't have esprit de corps? And you were talking to me just before we went on here about the fact that you were in Charleston. There's two places I want to go because of that. One is the Masters and the huge win by Rory. And the other thing is that there's a restaurant in Charleston we both love, and it's called Hall's Chop House. What lessons, when you think about a dealership wanting to deliver a great experience, tell me what is it that Hall's does that any dealership can and should do as a lesson from Hall's?
A couple quick comments. First of all, Bill Hall, who's unfortunately passed away, was the founder. Like many of the people that are listening that we deal with day in and day out, they too have fathers and grandfathers who were in the business as well. What they learned from their father is this: it's all about the customer experience. There are lots of places you can eat a steak dinner or buy a car. The question is, why do you go to a particular dealership? What experience is unique? Why is this steakhouse unique? You go into this steakhouse, Billy or his brother Tommy, or in some cases even his mother and his father before when he was alive, would always greet you, or senior management. Thank you for coming to Hall's, not related by the way, Chop House. What kind of a day are you having today? We really appreciate you being here. We know that in Charleston, South Carolina, we know that in Atlanta, Georgia, you can buy cars anywhere you want to buy cars. Thank you for being here with us. We're going to give you an incredible, seamless, efficient timing buying experience. And you're going to feel good about the steak meal, back and forth, if you will, that you're going to have here. And it's all about you and I as the customer who is buying from Hall's or buying a car in Atlanta, Georgia, or wherever. And I think as an industry, and go back to the earlier comment we had, it's a lot of this is predicated on this 30-day mentality. Got to make money. Got a bad month going, got to change it. Got a great month going, want to finish strong. I get it. I understand it. But it causes us to say and do things that make no sense. At the end of the day, the manufacturers have driven us to this. They've driven us by allowing us to make no margins. And so we have to make margins somewhere. So we make it in used cars and we make it in F&I. And we're being regulated in both arenas to the degree that it's going to become even tougher. We've got to make sure that we have a Hall experience, Hall's Chop House, if you will, that when you come into my dealership, it is a great experience. Your family. I went into a dealership recently up in Northern Virginia, a Land Rover, Range Rover dealership. A great group run by a young man by the name of John Altman. A wonderful group.
Oh, I know John very well. I work with John.
And you could talk about him, but when you go in there, not only can you have a great cup of coffee, a nice cookie, or whatever, you're treated like your family. It's a unique experience. And I'm thinking, why can't that take place in my Stellantis stores? Why doesn't that take place elsewhere? People are people and want to be appreciated. When you go into these steakhouses, like in Charleston we're talking about, you feel like you're special. This is unique. They've done something different for me because I'm their special customer today. We should allow every buying customer. And we don't have problem customers or difficulties. We have opportunities to win loyalty and get referrals.
It's funny as you know, I'm a partner in a pretty significant size restaurant group, the Mina Group, and we're fortunate enough to have a beautiful steakhouse, bourbon steak in your backyard in Four Seasons there in Bethesda. and obviously the restaurant in Charleston, New York, D.C., San Francisco, Vegas, we're all over the place. But one of the things I've come to know through that experience is that the system that we use, similar to the car business, is that when we have somebody come in, like you, and you come in, and I know that you've been there before. Once you greet that person, and that's probably the most important thing, is making that person feel welcome, making them feel like they're in the right place, and making it authentic. But the next thing you have to do is they will put information about you into their computer system. So everybody in that restaurant, whether you guys know it or not who's listening, if you go to a fine dining restaurant and they're using this process like Will Guidara does at 11 Madison or a Halls does, so that you know what those people like, what they don't like, something about their kids. I just was at the Four Seasons Dawn in Coalina, and I've been going there for, 8-9 years in a row. And when we pull up in the car, they greet us, Mr. Spisak, hey, Jackson Jagger, how are you? They know my kids' names. The people at the front desk when I walk up there, hey, it's Jackson and Jagger are here. It's just those little things. And by the way, for anybody listening, if you do something for a friend or a client, it's always appreciated. Try doing something for their kids, for their family, and it's appreciated times 10. So, Don, when you think about what Halls has done and the longevity, how well they've done it at that level, if you think about how well Bill, God rest his soul, he's a fantastic guy, used to be the head of Pebble Beach, as you know, and Ritz-Carlton on the West Coast. But what a magnificent job he did at passing that down, having it permeate through the family, through that restaurant, through every single person. Every person that you deal with at Halls, you think their name is Hall because they treat you the same way, don't you think?
I do, and I also think this. I don't mind paying more for something when I feel like I am part of something and I feel like I am appreciated. And I would say that when I go in to buy a car, that if I feel appreciated and I feel like I'm part of something and people really care about me, we're not going to haggle over every single dollar. We are not. And that's why we've got to change this mentality. It's me, I'm the tougher guy. I'm going to sell you a car today because I got to hit my gross. I got to hit my numbers. When they sense that, people shut down. They're not stupid. They figure it out. And if we could just treat people like we love them and we care about them, and they care about us as a result. Because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings trying to carve out our niches and take care of those who love us and those that we love. And so if we had that mentality, and I'm fortunate, we have some dealers in Virginia that way. You've got some clients that are that way for sure. But it is not the majority who understand this principle, and they should. And that's why a Hall's Chop House and other people like them, and I had the pleasure of going to your new restaurant in South Carolina in Charleston. What a great experience. It was the same kind of thing because they understand the principle of making. They gave us a free glasses of champagne. They wanted to thank us because they knew we were people that were going to be back, and we're probably going to rent rooms from their new resort they're going to build as well. And so it was a very unique experience, all predicated on the fact that they understand that people are valuable to their organization and to their success.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And by the way, I've got to throw this. You just caused me to have a flashback. I used to tell my salespeople in the 80s that when you have that approach where all you care about is making money and not helping the person get what they want, that prospective customer literally can sense what I would call commission breath, right? It reeks off of you, and it'll cause them to repel. You'll repel those people. When you run into somebody where you instantly get that feeling that they authentically, genuinely care about you, you find yourself leaning into them. And you said something else that's magnificent. Price does not matter when a superior experience is in the room. And nobody cares about how much the sandwich costs, that $20 tuna sandwich at the Four Seasons. Nobody cares at Halls how much that glass of wine cost. That's not what they're going to talk about. They're going to talk about that magnificent experience, just like Will Guidara speaks to in his book, Unreasonable Hospitality. Now, let's shift out of the restaurant, because I know you were in Charleston for a reason. I believe you said it's a tradition, and that you meet up with some guys, and that's why you were in Charleston. That's why you were in Halls. Talk to me about your love of golf, your love of the Masters, and why that tradition. What was it? What was it about this year's Masters that was the most meaningful or just memorable to you?
And again, as I said earlier, I didn't grow up knowing anything about golf.
Same. You know when I started golfing? I was 39 years old.
Yeah, I did not. I have played Augusta National twice in my life. I've had the opportunity to do that, and I've been blessed, and I recognize I've been blessed. Look, like most folks, first of all, we get together once a year. We go to Charleston. We used to go to the tournament itself and watch, but the crowds and all. We go to Charleston, and we camp out for hours and hours at Halls, at the bar, and we camp out some other places to watch the match. This year, we all wanted to see what Rory was going to do. Could he pull it off? Could he get this thing off his back that caused him? He'd had some turmoil in his life, some personal issues he was overcoming. You know, we all have challenges. And I am here to tell you, as a 69-year-old man, I am grateful for the challenges that I've had and that I will have, because it is through those challenges that I learn a lot about me, I learn about my maker, and I also learn how to deal with it and make myself a better person. It was great to watch Rory, who made mistakes, who had 4 doubles during this tournament.
He did.
Unusual, never happened before. 4, so in other words, if par is a 4, he had 4 sixes. Only we amateurs have that stuff and hate ourselves for it. And in reality, he missed a putt on 18 that Bryson just missed on the other side of the cup minutes before, and he still missed it and had to do a sudden death playoff. He kept his mind in the game. When things aren't going great, keep your mind in the game, keep focused, keep your passion, keep your drive, and keep going for it, and you too shall win. And this young guy won, and I'm so happy and proud of him, because he proved to all of us that you can have a 10-year period of time where not much is happening in your life, and maybe even some negatives in your life, and he did. And yet he kept his focus. And there's a lesson for all of us, and that is we will all have challenges. Embrace them as opportunities to learn. Not why me, but what can I learn from that challenge? Why did Rory have to go through this? Who knows? But he was smart enough to learn from it, calm enough to calm himself down during his game, and strong enough to prevail and win the Masters. Touche to this guy for having done that. It's a lesson for all of us, even at my age and your age, to learn as well.
I love that. So a couple things I'll share that I want to get your take on. So I read something after the Masters, and I didn't. Who would have known? But that Rory has a sports psychologist. Now, honestly,
out of Charlottesville, Virginia,
none of us should be surprised about that, because one thing that you see about the best of the best of the best of the best, you think, like, did Tiger Woods actually need a coach to tell him how to play golf? He knows how to play golf. He's been playing golf since he was 3, right? When you watch the Olympics, Noah Lyles, fastest man on earth, he's got a coach. Do you think the guy is saying, okay, Noah, first it's the left leg, then it's the right leg. When the guy shoots the gun, run, like for Forrest Gump. They know what they're doing. They have those people there to help them elevate, to be able to point out. They have the guts to ask people to tell them honestly, what are they doing wrong? What do I need to focus on? What do I do? And you know what the thing that struck me about that sports psychologist? That nobody spoke about it. Nobody knew about it until after he won. But part of his outcome with that last session prior to the Masters, Bryce happened to mention that Rory didn't say a single word, not one word in 18 holes, not one. Didn't say, hey, how you doing? 0. And the sports psychologist said that was by design, that we didn't want him to speak to anybody, didn't want to let anybody into the focus that he had that was going to distract or disrupt or dilute the focus he had. So I love that you said that, because how easy is it in the year 2025 to be distracted or disrupted or interrupted anything that's going to dilute your efforts. We don't think anything of it, but that these notifications that show up on your phone, those are not in your best interest. That's in the phone company's best interest, in Apple's best interest. It's not in ours. It's purely an interruption. The second thing is you talked about the 10 years. And I had made up a quote years and years ago. It just simply says, relentless cannot be defeated. I believe every human is either an if or a when. And if you have that relentless mentality that Rory had, Don, don't you agree? It was just a matter of when. We saw it in Tiger when he won the Masters. It made no sense. He defied logic. You remember that last time he won? When literally it seemed like all of Augusta was following him as he made that last, he walked up that last fairway to the green. I mean, what is it, do you think, in our business, when you think about the dealers that you've worked with who have had an impact or made an impression on you, what was it about them that made them different, that allowed them, no matter what happened externally, government, political, economy, interest rates, Black Monday on Wall Street, no matter what the threats were, the existential threats are, they just kept going. What is it about them that has impressed you? And is there a dealer that pops into your brain?
The answer is yes. And interesting, we're talking a lot about golf. If you're not a golfer, you may not appreciate this, but trust us, there are lessons to learn. You know, the irony is this. I'm thinking about someone who has since passed away, a car dealer, one of the biggest dealers in Virginia for a long time. This is unbelievable. His name was Ken Hall Auto World out of Virginia Beach.
Chop House, Ken Hall, no
and
relationship.
Don Hall, the motorcycle gang member's kid, was not part of any of the above. Ken Hall, every year, took over 100 members of his staff on a cruise. Not a single manager went with him, not a single, overachiever salesperson, but he took janitors and people that worked in the office. He took an IT person and their spouses. He believed in his people. He remembered from whence he came, a kid that grew up in a small community, no money, did an internship. He was going to be a boat welder, and decided after a tour in the Army way back in the early 60s, he ended up in the car business. He cared about people. And there are a lot of people in Virginia and North Carolina that have all came out of the Hall organization. They wanted to be very successful. What they learned about Ken was, again, back to Rory, same ingredient here, is you get your defeats. He failed as a dealer in New Orleans, Louisiana, long ago. He failed miserably. But he learned from that. And it was about focus. It was about taking care of his people. It was about making sure customers had a great buying experience. He had Chrysler when you felt like you only got the worst of people coming in who could qualify to buy a Chrysler, and treat them as if they were buying a Cadillac. Unique idea. So Ken was one of those dealers that was very unique, but it's not a big secret. It happens in sports. And let me tell you something. I know factually that he had not a sports psychologist, but he had a business person like you do, David, because I know you're a mentor to a lot of very good people out here in this country who know how to sell cars, but they need what you have, which is life's experience and an approach that's different, an approach that will help remind them what it is to be a human being and care about one another, and therefore have a great buying experience. And Ken had that same kind of coaching in his life. Smart people are willing to say, I don't have all the answers. Now, who are the people in my life or that I can hire, someone like you, that can help me be better at what I do? And I think that's what smart people do, rather than sit back and say, I'm going to count my money and take it to the grave with me. I'm not going to help people out. I'm not going to take my people on the cruise. I'm going to not do much right now because tariffs. I've read a lot in the news. My phone says it's bad.
Why
I'm
did
not
you?
gonna do it.
Oh, Don, the tariff, the T word, the terrible T word. First of all, I don't want to. I absolutely want to make certain that I highlight or put an exclamation point on what you're talking about with Ken. I had the I had the honor and the pleasure of meeting the one and only Carter Myers in New York just a few days ago. I never met him. I've known Liza for quite a long time. And their reputation when it comes to people, of course, they're an ESOP. Their entire organization's an ESOP owned by the employees. And everything's about the employees moving people forward. And I've long admired that organization. And, you know, isn't it interesting when you meet somebody like that? I didn't have the pleasure of meeting Ken, but when you meet a Carter Myers, just like I mentioned, you could have that sense of commission breath instantly. Don't you, when you meet somebody, I'd imagine like Ken Hall, or you meet somebody like Carter, or you meet somebody like Liza, I mean, literally within seconds, Carl Sewell, within seconds, you literally pick up instantly. It's like the entire culture that lives in their store, it literally comes, it's almost palpable when you have just even a basic conversation. Would you say that's true?
Well, number one, I was a young manager under Carter Myers 40 years ago. And every Sunday, he and I would meet at his house. He and I would read books throughout the week. We'd meet at his house. And then on Monday morning, all the GMs hated it when I come in. Oh, Don's there, he's sucking up to Carter. Because we read a book and we talk about it. And one of the books we read, I'll never forget it, is we have a tendency, our switchboard operators tend to be the least paid, probably the less qualified. And so the first person they meet, in particular in those days, coming into the dealership in those days, was the switchboard operator. And so what we learned in this book was, it was an airline, Swedish Airlines, that taught us this principle, is we want whoever interacts, now it's our BDC or the switchboard operators or whatever it might be, that they have a great first experience coming in. So don't use the most inexperienced, least paid person to do that job as you interact with customers. Carter Myers, in fact, coincidentally, I've got his book here with me. They just came out with a book celebrating 100 years of history.
100 years, amazing.
It's an incredible story, but I will tell you something more important. I want everyone to hear what I'm going to tell you. I'm not faulting those who have planes, trains, and automobiles and limousines and big boats and boats and so forth. Carter's never had any of the above. No. He can afford all the above. That's not Carter.
They fly coach.
Carter does what he does because he loves people that work for him. He was an ESOP back when I worked for him 40 years ago, and before that, he cares about people. He learned that from his grandfather, his father. He's taught it to his daughter, Liza. They are unique and they are different because of that. And people love to work for CMA Automotive Group. They have dealerships now in Maryland, West Virginia, and North Carolina because they care about people. They don't even call them employees. They're associates. They're owners. And
they call them owners.
There's nothing unique about this. We can do the same thing in our dealerships. Yeah. Why aren't we having that kind of, evolution and taking care of our people in that way so our customers want to come back to us? Why? Because at CMA, I have an incredible buying experience.
It's also major respect to the organization, to Liza specifically also, because, they've grown from about 6 stores up to, I believe, 25 now. And while only about approximately 2%, for those listening, about 2% of dealerships turn. If you ask a group of dealers in the country, about 2% are thinking about selling. You typically have 6, 8, 10 times that are thinking about buying. And so it creates this very challenging environment if you're looking to acquire a store. And there are some great sell-side, buy-sell advisors out there like Alan Haig, for example, at Haig Partners. Great people out there to help navigate that. The very same thing that you're talking about, that Carter obviously learned from his father and grandfather, and that he taught to Liza, and that Liza now is carrying through and finding new ways to disseminate that, new ways to make it even better. I mean, it's amazing. They've grown that organization without brokers. They've grown it, I think, in large part because the dealers that want to sell love the fact that the idea that their dealership, if they care about people, it makes them feel pretty great that their people are now going to be in the good hands of the CMA organization. And you don't think about this law of indirect effort, but the reality is everything we do affects everything we do. And lastly, too, before you get to the last subject, you brought up something a couple times that I've never really heard anybody bring up. It's something that I just shared with a dealer maybe 6 months ago. I think the calendar may be the biggest detriment to success and sustainable success, because every dealership in the first week of the month, everybody takes their foot off the gas, right? Everybody thinks that they have more time than they really do. We have massive amounts of irrational optimism, especially in the front end of dealerships. If I'm going to sell 100 cars, I only have 30 out in the first 20. Don't worry, boss. We do all our business in the back half. I could tell you as a data geek, there is zero data to support that. It's simply not true. And then all of a sudden, people start getting interested in the back half, excited, focused in the last week. And then we rinse and repeat, right? What did we make? And then they start all over again. And it's that calendar that causes them. You said something that's so valuable, Don, that I've never heard somebody say, and I can't overemphasize it for people listening. That calendar makes you make decisions that you otherwise would not make. That calendar even makes you sometimes hire people you would never hire. If your focus singularly was that you did want to be a Hall's Chop House, you did want to be a Carter Myers, you did want to be a Ken Hall, you did want to be legendary, why would you hire that person where your number one focus was experience, and their only experience is being mediocre for 10 years, selling 7 cars a month? And they've never delivered that spectacular experience. So what is it that we have to do to break that cycle when it comes to how we look at hiring? Should we shift from being focused on hard skills only or primarily to focusing on finding people that have the capacity, the caring, the authenticity, the authentic desire to deliver that?
David, I'll make a comment real quick. You're familiar with the concept of hash marks.
Sure.
For your listeners, hash marks are something you earn in the military. In the case of the Marine Corps and the Navy, for every 4 years, you get a hash mark. The Army, I think, does 3 years. I don't blame them, the Army doing less years. But 4 years in the Marine Corps. And the problem is we have lots of people who control dealerships or run the desk with lots of hash marks. Well, my comment is, bravo, touche, good for you that you have a love of this business. But make sure you're in love with the business and you're in love with the people that work for you and the customer buying experience. Because what kills us is we got old timers who don't want to change. I'll change, but I'll tell you what, when I retire in 3 years, we'll let the young people come in. Folks, we've got to change that today. Look, we had a large insurance agency doing business in a number of states. The ADA did, health, life, and dental and disability. I will tell you, our benefit structure is horrible. As dealers, we do a terrible job of what we offer our people. Our vacation structure is embarrassing. You start in most corporate jobs, say you start with 3 weeks vacation on day 1, you take a week's vacation in your first 6 months of hiring, you got something to explain to your bosses. We don't believe in those things. We don't believe in the idea that you ought to go home at 4 o'clock and watch your kid play soccer. We think that's a bad thing. We've got to change our business. We can attract young, progressive, hardworking young people who value family and their experience outside of the dealership. And I think that's critical. But that means that we may pay livable salaries, with bonuses being commissions based on whether it's monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual, annually, based on what you do. But to come to work for us, we're going to have to manage you. And years ago, without telling you who, I argued with a dealer about this subject years ago when I was in the retail. Why don't we pay a livable salary? We'll manage them into selling and doing and so forth. It was easier to say, no, we pay commission. Last man on the totem pole is out if they don't make the numbers, and you get paid however many cars you sell. At the end of the day, it creates for miserable home life. And I will tell you my experience, and yours is not any different, I'll bet. People with bad home lives and bad personal problems do not make good managers, do not make good salespeople.
And don't deliver great experiences.
They do not. And we want happy people who love their lives and love being a part of life and want to deal with people who are excited about buying a car. You sold a lot of cars. No, this is their car, and they're going to drive it for 8 years, and this is unique. They're going to put their family in that car. We want to have great experience. Treat our staff like regular people and pay them like regular industries and give them vacation and benefits like regular businesses. Create an ESOP, and guess what you'll have? Wonderful buying experience, and you're going to sell more vehicles.
Obviously, talking about Carter Myers, it's funny how organizations like that, or the Bozard organization with Ed Roberts, or think about Tesla, or you think about Fletcher Jones, you think about some of these organizations, they've never had a problem attracting people, and they've never had a problem keeping people, but they earn that. Right? There's no secret magic. They earn that, and they built that from the ground up, from their DNA in every way with their culture, right? They respect their people. They take great pride and care into creating a culture, a work environment that is positive, that's uplifting. They develop their people. They invest in their people. And they make certain that their people's welfare is well taken care of. At the Bozard organization, Don, it's astounding. They have daycare, right? At their organization, they have benefits nobody else has. They have benefits. They would make it impossible for somebody to not be interested in going to Bozard. In fact, there is literally a 2-year wait to get a job at Bozard. And so it's the industry. It's an indictment on the industry. It's a reflection on us. It's kind of like when you were saying, if somebody is focused as a client on price, you failed. You epically failed to deliver that Four Seasons experience, that Hall's Chop House experience, and you forced them to go down a path where the only thing they're going to judge you on is price because you couldn't play in that playing field. If you have a challenge with employees, it's a reflection or an indictment on your culture. Don't you think? Because the companies that get that are doing it right, that are looking for people with high EQs, people that are authentic, work ethic, team-oriented, care about what they do. And I think that's the number one thing of any associate, positive, important attribute, is that they care. But people that care will never work for you if they can sense you don't. Don't you agree?
David, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm going to make an assumption. The reason that you and I work at this point in our life is not because we have to have money to pay our bills. We work because we have a message, a dream, and a vision about what this industry is and can be and should be. And part of that message is exactly what we're talking about here. And the answer is absolutely, I agree. And this is what gets me up every morning now at this point in my life doing what I do, is to say to the dealers, wake up. Don't tell me things. I've heard it all. Been there, done that. I'm guilty of some of those negatives when I was a young manager long ago because I was a Marine. It was all about driving. And if I put you in a corner, you're going to do what I tell you. I was wrong. I want my people to be happy. I want them to enjoy the experience. I want them to be motivated about coming to the dealership in the morning. I want them to be excited about the opportunity to deliver transportation. That's what you and I are telling them. The smart ones will listen, but I'll tell you what, mark my words, if we don't pay attention as an industry, these manufacturers are going to continue, no matter what our laws say, to sell direct. Because the perception is that if I buy direct from the manufacturer, I'll have less confrontation, a more positive buying experience, and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing this for self-preservation, but more important, we're doing it so that you can wake up every morning excited about your life, happy about being in this industry, and share that joy with those people who are buying our cars in our dealerships.
Don, I'm going to officially invite you to join what I call my Empty My Head Before I'm Dead tour. That's what this is for me. I've been very fortunate to have some great mentors, to have people take an interest in me when they didn't have to. And I thank God I had the wisdom to listen to these people. And if there's anything I can do, and anybody that knows me knows this to be true, if there's any way possible that I can contribute to the betterment of the industry and the people in the industry, to up-level people, to put them into a position where they can over-index their circumstances, I'm going to do it. And I've done that every single day for 45 years. I'm not going to stop. I don't know when I'm going to hang it up, when I'm going to stop. I don't know when, the empty my head until I'm dead tour is over. But I could tell you I'm just as passionate or more so now than I've ever been. And if anybody can't tell, Don is a little bit passionate about this business and about the things we would love to do. Don, how do people get a hold of you? There's dealers all over the country. You've got great members in your VADA.
Sure.
But if there's dealers around the country that love the inspiration, love your experiences, love to learn more, love to have a conversation, are you open to that?
Absolutely. Any and everywhere, anytime.
So we're not going to give your home address, but best way to get a hold of you?
24/7. 24. I've got dealers who call me at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and I'm up at 4:30 going into the gym because I'm a Marine. dhall@vada.com is my email, and vada.com is our website. I'm also on LinkedIn, but I don't know how that address on that. But on LinkedIn, you can find me.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to do. If you go to davidspisak.com, you could look up the show notes for this episode, and we will also show you some additional information on Don. We'll give you some notes on what Don's touched on today that you could leverage and use in your teams, even whether you're in the car business or not. And also make sure that you have his LinkedIn address, an easy way to contact him there, or through his dhall@vada.com. I'm going to be in the great state of Virginia or close by. Well, actually, I'm going to be in this great state of Virginia visiting CMA next month. In the same week, I'm going to be doing some things with the ASOTUCon in Maryland. Are you going to be stopping by there? Are you in the area?
Last year I had the pleasure of speaking at ASOTU. This year I was not invited back up. I don't think it's a negative. You heard me last year. I will be around when you are in the Charleston area, so I look forward to maybe seeing you at some point.
Yeah, we'll do it. Maybe we could find a local Hall's Chop House experience that we could go check out. You're not far.
My vegan wife will cook us a steak.
All right, I don't get that every day, so I love that. Well, Don, I want to thank you for taking the time. We didn't even get this is how much is going on in this business, and this is why the things that matter really matter, right? So while you may be seeing the airwaves, or even the LinkedIn get dominated by tariff conversation, the T word, the reality is you don't have tariff impacted cars on the ground, not today, not this weekend, not this month, not next month. Stop giving oxygen. Stop getting caught up in the noise of this and the politics of this. Regardless of what side you're on, you lose. If you let your people get hung up in this, you lose. And the reality is, it's interesting. While tariffs may seem like a negative thing, and who knows how it's going to turn out, we don't. But I do know this. We have tremendous people in this industry, like Don Hall, like Carter Meyer, like other organizations. I was just at the Auto Forum, by the way, and man, oh man, when you just stand in that room and you look around at the people in that room, Mike Stanton was there, Jeff Pohanka was there, right? And you see some of the great leaders and innovators, tech solution creators. Everything's going to be fine. Don't get hung up in the noise. Get hung up on being obsessed with delivering a great experience for your client and just being obsessed with taking care of and loving your associates. Everything else will work out. Agreed, Don?
100%. It's about people, not cars.
I love it. And hey, we'll throw a shout out there for our friends at ASOTU, Paul and Kyle. Love people more than cars. That's for you, gentlemen.
There you go.
All right. Don, thank you for joining. For everybody who's listening, I thank you for joining and taking the time, giving us your time. I feel really confident Don gave you huge value, as I expected. I knew he would. Please take the time to share this episode to anybody who wants to be inspired, uplifted, who wants to elevate their client experiences or their ability to bring in great associates in their organization. And please feel free to review, good, bad, or ugly. I love them all. I learn from them all. It's all good. So thank you, and I'll see you next time on the David Spisak Show. Thank you, Don.